Now, after more than 9 months of closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic, various educational institutions across the country fully reopened in January 2021 to allow for academic activities to continue. While this allowed for the resumption of at least some form of face-to-face interactions between students and their teachers, the pandemic has also forced innovations which have gravely changed education in Ghana. You'll hear from my conversation with the Education Minister shortly, but as we mark a year of the devastating coronavirus, my colleague Manuel Kranting zooms in on Ghana's educational system and how it's been impacted by COVID-19.
2019 was a year that put Ghana on the map. With an economy projected to be the fastest growing in the world by the International Monetary Fund, government's Year of Return initiative did not only make the country the preferred investment destination that year, but also drew tourists from all over the world to the shores of Ghana. In December 2019, local beaches were packed, pubs overflowed with patrons, and outdoor events simply oversubscribed. With the launch of the Beyond the Return initiative, 2020 was to be an even bigger year. At least that was the expectation. Then just before the end of the first quarter of 2020, this happened.
The Ministry of Health were confirmed on the 12th of March, that's today, 2020, and the first cases to be reported in Ghana.
This announcement on March 12, 2020 signaled the arrival of a virus which, having been first found in China, was in to ravage every sector of Ghana's economy as it was doing with all its other host countries. First, Professor Benzo is a Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana, where one of the country's first 2 cases was recorded.
A few cases of COVID-19 have been identified in Ghana, including a case involving one of our non-resident students who returned. For those resident on campus, remain on campus as we go through the required protocols of contact tracing to avoid any spread to the immediate and large communities. Non-resident students are required to keep away from campus until further notice.
That was
senior high schools and basic schools, i.e. public and private schools, will be closed Monday, 16th of March 2020 till further notice.
The next few weeks after this would see hostels vacated, classrooms abandoned, and academic work totally grounded. About 8.5 million learners were affected by the closure of schools, which resulted in the loss of more than 1,000 hours of learning time. Almost immediately, the search was on for how to continue academic instructions remotely with students at home. The result was Ghana Learning TV and radio and other virtual learning platforms which were adopted to keep students engaged momentarily. This was definitely not without operational challenges. Kofi Asare is Executive Director of Africa Education Watch.
It looks like in urban areas like Accra, for instance, as I mentioned, in urban areas like Accra, where we are collecting data in AMA, pupils were not able to access Ghana Learning TV because there was very little supervision from parents, even where TV access wasn't an issue.
At the tertiary level, the online teaching and learning module was largely deployed in spite of initial opposition from students who were concerned about the inequitable distribution of internet resources across the country.
It hasn't been easy at all because I was having challenges online and I came here. It wouldn't be very easy because I am coming from Accra and I'm a little bit okay with the literacy system, as in the IT system, but those coming from the villages who have had admissions here would find it very difficult because they don't know much about the system and how the school runs.
It's not that easy for me because from SHS we are not equipped to that online program. So since we are doing it through online, it's somehow difficult for me. I prefer there should be a manual system, but due to the pandemic, how will we do it?
Even lecturers had challenges too. Dr. Samuel Nkumban is president of UTAG Legon.
Well, I mean, it certainly has been challenging for quite some of our colleagues. We joke with them by referring to them as analog professors in the digital era. However, the university computing systems has been on hand to support us. Before school resumed, we had 3 weeks of training for all the lecturers on the use of the e-learning platforms. Those who took part certainly got acquainted with how to navigate around the online learning systems. It's the case that the face-to-face contact with students gives you a better perception of how people are receiving a lecture. I mean, somebody's facial expression in class can give you an idea that this person is either not understanding or is understanding what you are teaching. Unfortunately, that is what we are missing out on. Well, it's been challenging because much of the work that you needed to have traveled around to pick data for, you now have to probably rely on online sources. And if the systems are not functioning effectively, then it stifles progress. And so it was a promise by government that in these times there was going to be a lot of injection of funding into providing ICT facilities and so on and so forth. We haven't seen much of that happen.
Soon, the trending phrase became the new normal. Government, acting on science and data, had allowed for a phased reopening of schools, starting with final year students who were due for their terminal exams. They will be provided with free face masks and other PPE by government as they headed back for school for the task ahead. Many things had changed. In the universities, lectures were being held virtually, together with rituals like graduation ceremonies. For Ebo Daniel and other members of the UG class of 2020, the pandemic stole too much from them.
Well, I didn't expect my final year to end this way or go as it did. When the pandemic came, we all thought it would last but for a few months, as we've seen bird flu and other diseases do. But it turns out that it lasted longer than we expected. And for me as a final year student who has taught for 4 years here at the university and expecting to graduate at the Great Hall and have a grand ceremony, personally and a lot of friends that I know of, we are not happy about it.
But an initial assessment conducted by Africa Education Watch on the re-enrollment of students into schools revealed even more serious challenges at the pre-tertiary level.
The greatest impediment to re-enrollment when schools reopen after 10 months of closure is definitely going to be teenage pregnancy and an early marriage. Indeed, when we did our first research in August on school reopening process, out of 200 schools that we sampled, there were 20% of the schools that indicated that between 1 and 3 girls did not return to school. And that was during the BEC, August, when schools reopened for the BEC's candidate to go and write the examination. Between 1 to 3 students did not return.
Kofi Asare believes increased community sensitization will get more pregnant teens to return to school.
But I am happy that the Ghana Education Service has rolled out a re-entry program with the support of UNICEF in about 47 or so districts. I'm also happy that the CSO community, including ourselves, we are part of a wider re-entry campaign In the past 2-3 weeks, we've been working with Star Ghana in the districts, trying to mobilize district capacity, synergize their effort towards engaging traditional authorities and faith-based organizations, because the greatest impediment is that our culture is not allowing us to admit pregnant girls into the community and then into the school.
Meanwhile, the Ghana Education Service is currently rolling out the Ghana Accountability for Learning Outcomes project GALLOP in basic schools to help students resettle smoothly. This follows the full reopening of schools by President Akufo-Addo on January 15, 2021. For now, laptops and mobile phones are replacing the conventional notepads and marker boards, while Zoom and Google Meet have become the new classrooms.
Have lectures online with a lot of internet issues and having problems, especially if you have a problem with your laptop or your phone. It's been very difficult adjusting to the online. I use my phone for the Zoom meetings, but if I want to check something on the internet, I use the school's Wi-Fi, especially with my laptop.
I think the face-to-face is quite better, because some courses like this, it cannot be done online. Like, let's say the maths courses, like those science-related courses, they cannot be done online. You need to see the lecturer face-to-face, able to interact with the lecturer, able to get to know, get more details. But with the online, he may not be able to get the feedback he's wanting, getting from the students, able to play off the students exactly. That's why. Especially organized group studies, meet up in let's say in our halls, various halls and stuff. But now I think that being your room alone, or go to the various libraries or study rooms. And with the way university education is, you always need you can't do it on your own. You always need your colleagues, your friends to help you out and various things going. Let's say we are doing a 2-hour lecture like this. You take in sometimes, let's say you can take it within the slides that lecturer produces. You can take it between 50 to 60 slides, loaded information.
On the flip side, consistent and overuse of these gadgets has implications for the health of students. Father Anthony Ifriamponsa is a clinical psychologist.
We call something the effect of blue light effect on the melatonin of the brain. The melatonin of the brain is a neurotransmitter that is responsible for your sleep-wake cycle. Okay, so most of these gadgets have blue light because combination of all lights is white. The combination of all colors is black. But if you have the light coming from your phone, and most of it is white light, it's LED, and it has more of blue light, and the more it goes on through your retina, it depletes the production of melatonin in the brain. So it disrupts your sleep cycle, your sleep-wake cycle, and at the end of the day, young people are beginning to have effects, symptoms that appear to be depression, stress, and anxiety. The head itself is very, very heavy. You know, the average head wouldn't be less than 5 kilos. Wouldn't be less than 5 kilos. So you're constantly watching your screen. So you can imagine the load you are putting on your muscles around your neck. And so you pull it down for a very long time, and you are causing so much strain in your neck. So that itself is very painful. And remember that we call it the brain stem. The brain stem, the first link from the vertebrae or the spinal cord to the brain is what we call the brain stem. And the next one, the very cortex of the brain that the brain stem hits is the cerebellum, and which is responsible for your balance and your emotions. So the more you bend and you put so much stress on it, you begin to realize that sometimes the floor does not become too even for you. So you are putting so much stress on the brain.
Indeed, there's no denying the fact that the pandemic has exposed major cracks of inequality in our educational system, but it also has provided an opportunity to make the right investments and provide support for growth. For JoyNews, Manuel Cranting.